Okay, well, I decided to do a review of this camera to let everyone aware of the fiasco that you might actually dive into with this bad monkey. This is one of those ANRAN AR-AP2GA-Wi-Fi-IP2. It's supposed to be a dual H.264 camera. You see in the front, it said in the ad that it was a 2 megapixel camera. It says 3 megapixels in the front. A little bit offset. It's got 2 infrareds, and you know, obviously the light sensor right here turns on the infrareds, and it works fantastic. These infrareds are great. Gets a beautiful picture when it works. You can see it looks like it's extruded aluminum on the outside. This is the base that you can mount on it. I had to do some modifications inside the base to get these screws to fit. I had to grind it out a little bit. And it comes on somewhat of a cantilever that sticks out. It's somewhat flimsy. Whenever the wind blows, you'll see in your image the camera will do this. It's pretty heavy. I'd say it's less than 5 pounds, but probably maybe 2.5, 3. Got a Wi-Fi antenna on the back of it. Not a bad size, but it's overall it is kind of big. See the size. I'm a small guy, so the size of my hand tall. It does come with power over Ethernet if you want to. I've used this for hooking up the internet cable. The conventional style 12-volt power supply. That's very common across IP cameras. And here's your power supply. It looks like it's an AC adapter made in China. I don't know how well you can see that from where we sit. So anyway, I've had this camera a little over a month, and it comes with this little CD. I have it here in my pocket. Looks like that IP camera software, real small CD. Load it in there, and you have to load the CMS software that talks to this. And this is supposed to be one of those Onvif verified. It's a kind of like a convention of open source properties for this thing to control it, and it is just god awful. The instructions are essentially somebody from Japan or China trying to speak English, so the English in it's horrible. On top of that, the software to run this is extremely cheap. It will work from time to time, but it doesn't work 100% of the time, which is a real bummer because this is actually a really nice unit. You see, it's built very rigid, but it lacks the software side of it. So one of the major problems I've had with this is it says there's an IP address here on the side. I don't know if it'll focus in on it or not. There we go. So it says 192.168.1.10. So on my network, there's a 0 in place of that 1 right there. When you use the CMS software, you end up clicking on it, and you'll see 2 IP addresses, 2 different MAC addresses. One of them is for the LAN, one of them is for the Wi-Fi. So they're supposedly supposed to have 2 different MAC addresses. Every time I hooked up to my network, it would last for about 6 hours, then fall off the network. Go to check my my DHCP list, and it has 2 different IP addresses, but the same identical MAC address. It favors one or it favors the other. So the software that's inside here, or firmware, is just awful. I've been going back and forth with this person in China or Japan. I'm not sure where it's from. And we've been writing letters back and forth. He's asking how my network's going. I have a gigabit network. I have the ASUS AC, so I know that that's not the problem with the Wi-Fi. I've even plugged this thing in via the Ethernet jack, and this green light right here barely even comes on. It's like a small pulse. And it's just absolutely awful, but it gives you a great picture, and mine's working with a Synology. So what I'm doing was I plugged it into my Synology server, and I have a camera station or surveillance station running. It doesn't even work on that. It'll hold on to it using the Onvif setting for about 6 hours, then it just ends up pegging back and forth like, oh, it doesn't want to work anymore. So if you can get this camera to work correctly, I'm sure it'll be a great investment. But with all the knowledge that I have, we brought it in here to our IT department, they can't even get it to work correctly. And I see a lot of times you'll find this camera somewhat like it. They'll change the name, but it's essentially the same camera, and they keep putting new ones on there because there's such a fallout rate with these things that they can't keep it on Amazon and keep the rating up there as well, because they'll post like 5 of these and then post 5 more of these someplace else. So here's a YouTube video letting you know that although it might be a very robust, good design that emulates a lot of Foscams or Dehus, it is not worth the money or the hassle. 30 days straight I've been working on this bad boy. Still cannot get it to stay on the network for more than 6 hours. So if anybody else has a way to keep it running, let me know. I'm going to return this one to Amazon and buy something different. If you have any questions, go ahead and write them below, and I'll make sure that I get back to them as soon as possible.